The details of that midnight meeting had never been revealed, until Jasmine Crockett confronted Ron DeSantis about it on live television. The decisions made in that meeting, the deals struck, the promises given. As everything came to light piece by piece, DeSantis's desperate attempts at explanation only made things worse. What really happened in that midnight meeting? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because today we're going to reveal one of the darkest secrets in American politics. Trust me, the ending of this story will shock you. Ron DeSantis, 44 years old, Florida's most powerful governor, Harvard Law graduate, former Navy officer, experienced politician who had served 3 terms in Congress. For him, politics was a chess game, and he was one of its masters. Calm, calculating, someone who planned every move in advance. Nothing was coincidental in DeSantis's world. During his 4 years in Florida, there was no single force that could stop him. Media, opposition, federal government, he had faced them all and won. The Free Florida movement he launched had made him a national figure. His entry into the 2024 presidential race was no longer a secret. Everyone knew he was preparing for it. But Ron DeSantis had one weakness: his past. Jasmine Crockett was a completely different story. 33 years old, a young congresswoman elected from Texas. But the inexperience her age might suggest was misleading. Crockett was an experienced lawyer who had worked at Texas's most prestigious law firms, specialized in civil rights cases, and won dozens of important cases. When she came to Congress, most people saw her as a young idealist from outside the system. But her performance in the first committee meetings quickly changed this perception. Her questions were sharp, her evidence concrete, and her approach completely professional. Her courtroom experience gave her an advantage in Congress's chaotic atmosphere. These 2 politicians from different worlds had crossed paths at that midnight meeting. And now, 3 months later, the secret details of that meeting would be revealed before all of America. It was a cold February night. Snow was falling in Washington, D.C., and the city was almost completely silent. It was past midnight. Under normal circumstances, the only active place at such an hour would be the White House Situation Room. But that night, an extremely secret meeting was taking place in the basement of the old Senate building on Capitol Hill. The number of people who knew about the meeting didn't exceed 10 fingers. Security cameras had been turned off, phones had been collected, and even the participants' drivers were kept at a distance. This level of secrecy was only seen in matters related to national security. There were 7 people in the room. Ron DeSantis was one of them. At that time, he wasn't governor yet, but a congressman elected from Florida. The other names sitting around the table were America's most powerful lobbyists, CEOs of energy companies, and 2 senators. The main topic of the meeting: solar energy blocking project. The solar energy sector in Florida was growing rapidly. This situation directly threatened the profits of traditional energy companies. The names at the meeting were developing a plan to eliminate this threat. The plan was extremely simple: legally block solar energy investments in Florida. How are we going to accomplish this? It was DeSantis who asked the question. The answer was terrifying: fake environmental reports, bought experts, misleading media campaigns, and most importantly, illegal political donations. DeSantis's role in that meeting wasn't passive. He was the person who would execute the Florida leg of the plan. In return, he would receive all the financial support he would need for the 2018 gubernatorial election. The deal was sealed with a handshake. But no one in the room knew that what happened that night would drag them all to disaster 3 years later. March 2025. Ron DeSantis was now Florida's governor and taking the first steps of his presidential campaign. Everything was going as he had planned, until that phone call came. "Governor, there's an urgent situation. A member of Congress is trying to reach you." Jasmine Crockett. DeSantis didn't recognize this name. "Who is this woman and what does she want from me?" "I don't know, sir, but she's very insistent. She says she wants to talk about the midnight meeting." The moment he heard this sentence, DeSantis's heart rate accelerated. No one knew about that meeting. 3 years had passed and not a single word had been spoken about it since then. So how did this woman learn about it? "I won't have this conversation. Don't give her an appointment." But Jasmine Crockett wouldn't give up. Jasmine Crockett's involvement in this matter wasn't coincidental. During her time at the law office in Texas, she had represented clean energy companies. This experience gave her the opportunity to see the dirty games in the sector up close. When she came to Congress, she was appointed to the Energy and Commerce Committee. One of this committee's main duties was to oversee competitive conditions in the energy sector. Crockett was particularly interested in the obstacles to solar energy. During her research, she noticed a strange pattern in Florida. After 2018, permits given to solar energy projects had decreased dramatically. The environmental reports shown as the reason were suspicious. The experts who prepared the reports were unknown names brought from outside Florida that no one recognized. At this point, she called a former friend from the FBI. "Michael, I'm going to tell you about a strange situation." Michael Thompson was an experienced agent who had worked in the FBI's white-collar crime unit for 15 years. He now worked as a security consultant in the private sector. What Crockett told him interested him greatly. "Jasmine, what you're describing sounds like organized crime. If you can prove it, this will be a very big scandal. I need evidence, Michael, but I don't know where to start." The starting point is money. In this type of operation, there's always money transfer. Examine campaign donations, lobbying activities, consultancy payments. Crockett's investigation continued from here. And 6 months later, she reached traces of that midnight meeting. The first clue came from a former energy company employee. James Patterson worked as accounting manager at Atlas Energy. When the company went bankrupt, some documents in his possession caught his attention. "These payments are very strange," he had thought. "Millions of dollars have been transferred without any service in return." Patterson had considered turning these documents over to the FBI, but the FBI had other priorities at that time. The documents were filed and forgotten until Jasmine Crockett contacted him. "Mr. Patterson, during your position at Atlas Energy, did you ever see any suspicious money transfers?" This question surprised Patterson. "Actually, yes. I still have those documents." When the documents reached Crockett, the first piece of the puzzle fell into place. Atlas Energy had donated a total of $15 million to politicians who would operate in Florida in 2018. 70% of these donations went to Ron DeSantis' campaign, but the really suspicious part was the timing of these donations. They were all made in the last week of February, within a few days of each other. It was like a coordinated operation. The information in Crockett's hands was powerful, but not sufficient. She needed concrete evidence to prove the existence of that midnight meeting. At this point, her FBI friend Michael stepped in. "Jasmine, security protocols are definitely applied in this type of meeting. Building entry and exit records, security cameras, visitor lists. You need to find these." "How can I find records from 3 years ago?" "Capitol Police has archives, but accessing them requires official investigation authority." At this point, Crockett made a clever move. Using her authority on the Energy Committee, she initiated a subcommittee investigation on lobbying activities in the energy sector. Within the scope of this investigation, she had the right to request information about past meetings in the Capitol building. Among the documents she requested were records from the critical night of February 2022. When the documents came into her hands, Crockett held her breath. On that cold February night, a meeting had indeed taken place in the basement of the old Senate building. Security records clearly showed this. Moreover, she had the list of names who entered the building that night: Ron DeSantis, Florida Congressman; Senator Marcus Wheeler, Wyoming; Senator Patricia Hoffman, Alaska; CEO Richard Blackstone, Atlas Energy; CEO Jennifer Mills, Coastal Power Corp; lobbyist David Rosenberg; lobbyist Sarah Chendi. Meeting started at 11:45 p.m. and ended at 2:30 a.m. It had lasted almost 3 hours. Most importantly, it was recorded that the security cameras were turned off that night for maintenance. Such a coordinated operation proved that the meeting was planned and had a secret nature. But what Crockett was really looking for was a record of what was discussed at the meeting. Such secret meetings weren't recorded, but sometimes participants kept their own notes. This was the most difficult part of the investigation. One of the 7 people at the meeting needed to be willing to talk. Jasmine Crockett strategically targeted the weakest links. Talking to politicians was pointless. They would never talk. CEOs were similarly protected, but lobbyists were different. First, she contacted David Rosenberg. Rosenberg was an experienced lobbyist who had been active in the energy sector for 30 years, but his age and health problems made him vulnerable. Mr. Rosenberg, I'd like to talk to you about energy policies in Florida. What specifically? About some meetings that took place in February 2022. There was a long silence on the phone line. Which meetings? I think you know better. Rosenberg panicked. I don't know what you mean. I can't help you. He hung up the phone. Her second target was Sarah Chen. Chen was a younger, less experienced lobbyist. She had started working for Atlas Energy 2 years ago. Crockett tried a different approach with her. Ms. Chen, I'm preparing a report on young professionals in the energy sector. Could I benefit from your experiences? Chen didn't suspect this approach. Of course. How can I help you? What kind of meetings did you attend during your position at Atlas Energy? Various meetings. Client presentations, strategy meetings, meetings with politicians. Meetings with politicians are interesting. Where do these usually take place? Mostly in offices, sometimes in restaurants, very rarely in more private places. This answer caught Crockett's attention. What do you mean by private places? Chen realized she had made a mistake at that moment. I mean, unofficial environments. It's not important. Have you ever had meetings in the Capitol building? I should end this conversation here. Chen also hung up the phone, but Crockett had gotten the clue she needed. Chen's reaction showed that she knew something about that night. The real breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Marcus Wheeler, the Wyoming senator, had suffered a heart attack. While lying in the hospital, he began thinking about some regrets from his past. Wheeler's daughter Janet was worried about her father's condition. Her father constantly talked about that night, expressing regret. Janet wanted to clarify this matter so her father could find peace. Janet Wheeler called Jasmine Crockett with her father's permission. Ms. Crockett, my father wants to talk to you about energy issues in Florida. This call was the opportunity Crockett had been waiting for. The meeting at the hospital became the turning point of the investigation. Ms. Crockett, I want to get rid of this burden before I die. What we did that night was wrong. Wheeler told in detail what was discussed at that midnight meeting. The plan prepared to block solar energy projects, fake reports, illegal payments to politicians, media manipulation, everything. Most importantly, Wheeler had left his phone in recording mode that night. This move, which he made for security purposes, now emerged as evidence of all the conversations. Do you have the recording? Crockett asked. Yes, and I'm going to give it to you. The audio recording was 2 hours and 30 minutes long. The quality wasn't perfect, but the conversations were clearly understandable. DeSantis's voice could be clearly distinguished in the recording. The most critical part of the recording was this. DeSantis. So how are we going to implement this plan in Florida? Solar energy companies are very powerful. Blackstone, Atlas Energy CEO. We'll put up legal barriers. We'll use environmental regulations, DeSantis. How with environmental regulations? Blackstone. We'll prepare fake reports. We'll claim that solar panels harm the soil, affect bird populations. DeSantis. Who will prepare these reports? Blackstone. Experts we've bought. The list is already ready. DeSantis. So what will I get in return? Blackstone. All the financial support you need for your gubernatorial campaign. $1 million. DeSantis. This money's source must be clean. Blackstone. Of course. It will appear as small donations from multiple companies. DeSantis. Deal. This conversation alone was enough to finish DeSantis. Bribery, corruption, environmental crimes, abuse of public office. All crimes were recorded here. After evaluating the evidence in her hands, Jasmine Crockett determined her strategy. Instead of directly accusing DeSantis, she would trap him in his own lies. There was a perfect opportunity for this. DeSantis was going to be a guest on a television program called America's Future. The program asked politicians questions about their careers. Crockett arranged to be invited as a guest to the program as well. The program's format was perfect. 2 guests sat side by side. The moderator asked questions, and guests could answer both the moderator and each other. It was live and lasted 2 hours. DeSantis, knowing that he would be on the program, was part of Crockett's plan. If DeSantis had refused to come, this would have aroused suspicion. Coming would trap him. During the pre-program preparation phase, Crockett planned even the smallest details. Which questions she would ask, which documents she would show, which audio recordings she would play. Everything was calculated. End of March, spring was beginning to come to Washington. CNN studios were in Virginia, in a quiet area outside the city. Crockett had come early and was making final preparations. Her phone rang. It was Michael. "Jasmine, is everything ready?" "Yes, but the tension is at its peak. That's normal. This will be the most important moment of your career." "You'll succeed. What if I can't?" "You will. Because you're right and you have evidence." She saw DeSantis arrive by car. Black SUV, tinted windows, security team. He looked powerful and confident. But Crockett knew his real situation. They met in the makeup room. DeSantis extended his hand with a polite smile. "Ms. Crockett, nice to meet you. I'm pleased to be on the program together." Crockett shook his hand. "Me too, Governor DeSantis. I think it will be a very productive conversation." A momentary doubt appeared in DeSantis's eyes. There was something strange about this woman's attitude. She was too calm, too prepared. Moderator Jennifer Walsh was one of CNN's most experienced journalists. In her 30-year career, she had interviewed the biggest politicians. She thought this program would also be a routine political interview. "Good evening. Welcome to America's Future. Tonight our guests are Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett." The studio was warm, the lights were bright. Two politicians sat side by side, about a meter apart. "Governor DeSantis, there's been speculation recently about your presidential candidacy. What can you say about this?" DeSantis felt comfortable. He had answered this question hundreds of times. "Jennifer, I'm currently focused on serving Florida. Of course, if there's an opportunity to serve our country on a broader scale in the future, I would consider it." Congresswoman Crockett, "You're also said to be a rising name in your party." "I'm currently focused on serving the people, but some things I see in Washington worry me." This answer caught DeSantis's attention. It was a strange tone. "What kind of concerns?" Jennifer asked. "Especially manipulations in energy policies. Policies that consider private companies' interests instead of public interests." DeSantis became uncomfortable. This conversation was going in a direction he didn't expect. "That's quite a serious accusation," he said. "What manipulations are you talking about?" Crockett had been waiting for this moment. For example, the barriers put on solar energy investments in Florida. In the last 4 years, permits given to renewable energy projects decreased by 60%. The environmental reports shown as the reason for this are extremely suspicious. DeSantis's heartbeat accelerated. What did this woman know? These reports were prepared to protect Florida's interests. Solar energy projects aren't as innocent as they're thought to be. "Really?" Crockett took out a document from her file. "I have the list of experts who prepared these reports. What's interesting is that none of these experts reside in Florida. Moreover, they receive salaries from companies operating in the energy sector." Jennifer Walsh was surprised. This wasn't a routine interview anymore. "Governor DeSantis, what's your response to these claims?" DeSantis began sweating. "Where experts live isn't important. What's important is their expertise." "What do you think about these experts' financial connections?" Crockett took out the second document. "The payments they received from Atlas Energy, Coastal Power, and similar companies." DeSantis began stuttering. I don't know the details of these matters. These things are handled by the bureaucracy." Crockett smiled. "The trap was beginning to be set, I see. So you don't know the details. Have you ever had direct contact with these companies?" "No, I've had no private meetings with energy companies." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." This was a lie and Crockett could prove it. "Very interesting. Because according to the documents I have, you had a private meeting with Atlas Energy CEO Richard Blackstone in February 2022. DeSantis's face went pale. "Which meeting?" "The last week of February. Midnight. In the old Senate section of the Capitol building." You could hear a pin drop in the studio. DeSantis looked around desperately. "How was this known? I don't remember that meeting." "You don't remember? A meeting that lasted almost 3 hours?" DeSantis's voice began trembling. "I attend many meetings. I don't remember all of them." Jennifer Walsh now grasped the seriousness of the situation. "Congresswoman Crockett, do you have other information about this meeting?" Crockett took out the third document. "Capitol Police records. The list of people who entered the building that night. Governor DeSantis's name is clearly visible here. Entry time 11:42 p.m. Exit time 2:34 a.m. DeSantis was now cornered. He couldn't continue denying. "Okay, I attended that meeting, but this was a routine political discussion." "A routine meeting at midnight?" Crockett's voice was ironic. And turning off security cameras for maintenance was also routine? I'm not responsible for security matters. So what was discussed at the meeting? General political topics. And was solar energy discussed? DeSantis hesitated. Maybe. Energy policies might have been addressed in general. Were Atlas Energy's projects in Florida discussed? I don't remember. Were environmental reports discussed? I don't remember specific details. Was campaign financing discussed? This question made DeSantis very uncomfortable. What do you mean? Crockett took out the fourth document. The list of donations Atlas Energy made to you. Total $11.5 million. What's interesting is that all these donations were made within 2 weeks after that midnight meeting. Jennifer Walsh held her breath. Governor DeSantis, is there a connection between these donations and that meeting? No, absolutely not. This is completely coincidental. Coincidental? Crockett took out the fifth document. What about Coastal Power's $7.2 million donation? That was also made in the same period. DeSantis was now completely on the defensive. These are legal donations. There's nothing illegal. Legal donations, of course. But what was promised in return for these donations? Nothing was promised. At this point, Crockett thought it was time to play her real card. Governor DeSantis, I'd like you to listen to an audio recording. The blood drained from DeSantis's face. What recording? From that midnight meeting. Impossible. That meeting wasn't recorded. Is that so? Crockett took out her phone. Let's listen. The recording from Wheeler's phone began playing in the studio. The sound quality wasn't perfect, but the conversations were understandable. First, Blackstone's voice was heard. We'll prepare fake reports. We'll claim that solar panels harm the soil. Then DeSantis's voice. Who will prepare these reports? Blackstone. Experts we've bought. DeSantis. So what will I get in return? Blackstone. $25 million. DeSantis. Deal. The recording stopped. There was deadly silence in the studio. Jennifer Walsh was in shock. DeSantis was completely frozen. Governor DeSantis, is this voice yours? DeSantis couldn't answer for a while. Then he began stuttering. I don't know where this recording came from. It could be edited. Edited? Crockett took out the sixth document. FBI's voice analysis report is here. The recording is unedited and your voice is identified with 99.7% certainty. DeSantis was now completely helpless. Governor DeSantis, Crockett stood up. I want to ask you this question. Don't you want to apologize to the people of Florida? What should I apologize for? For taking away the people's right to clean energy under the pretense of environmental protection, when you were actually serving private companies' interests. I did nothing wrong for selling Florida's energy policies for $25 million. This is slander. The evidence is there, Governor DeSantis. You can't deny it anymore. DeSantis jumped to his feet. This is a trap. This woman trapped me. Jennifer Walsh tried to get the situation under control. Governor DeSantis, please calm down. Calm down? This woman is trying to destroy my career. Crockett remained calm. I'm just revealing the truth. Truth? This is a conspiracy. What conspiracy? FBI records, Capitol Police documents, bank records, audio recordings. Are all of these a conspiracy? DeSantis looked around desperately. Cameras were recording everything. Millions of people were watching live. I want to talk to my lawyer. Of course, that's your right, but these records have already been turned over to the FBI. This sentence delivered the final blow to DeSantis. To the FBI? Yes, I filed a criminal complaint. Bribery, abuse of public office, environmental crimes, violation of election laws. The full list is quite long. DeSantis's legs began trembling. He collapsed into his chair. This will finish me. No, said Crockett. You did this to yourself. I just brought it to light. As soon as the program ended, chaos broke out everywhere. The DeSantis Gate hashtag trended within minutes on social media. The clip of the audio recording was viewed millions of times on YouTube. An army of reporters gathered in front of the CNN building. Everyone wanted to interview Jasmine Crockett. Ms. Crockett, how did you conduct this investigation? It was 6 months of meticulous work. It's the responsibility of true Democrats to the people. Is DeSantis's political career over? Our people will answer that question. How long will the FBI investigation take? I can't speculate on that, but the evidence is very strong. The situation in Florida was chaotic. Protest demonstrations had started in front of the governor's mansion. DeSantis resign banners were being opened. The first reaction from the Republican Party came from Florida Senator Rick Scott. These allegations are very serious. If they're true, no one is above the law. Atlas Energy's shares fell 47% at market opening. CEO Richard Blackstone's resignation was being demanded. Based on the information Crockett gave to the FBI, federal prosecutors took action. Search warrants were issued for the governor's mansion and DeSantis's campaign headquarters. At 6:00 a.m., FBI agents knocked on the governor's mansion door. DeSantis's wife Casey was in shock. What's happening? Why are they here? Ma'am, we're conducting an investigation regarding your husband. We have a search warrant. DeSantis was still sleeping. The shock from the previous night had devastated him. When he woke up to see his house being searched by the FBI, he had trouble grasping reality. This must be a nightmare. But it wasn't a nightmare. FBI agents were collecting computers, phones, documents, searching every corner. At the same time, a raid was conducted on Atlas Energy headquarters. CEO Blackstone was arrested. The FBI investigation progressed rapidly. The evidence at hand was so strong that defense was impossible. The first confession came from Blackstone. The FBI's pressure on him lasted only 6 hours. Okay. I'll tell everything. But I'm also a victim in this. Blackstone's confession revealed all the details of the conspiracy. Similar operations had been conducted not only in Florida, but also in Texas, Wyoming, and Alaska. Who was the leader of this network? Asked the FBI agent DeSantis. It was all his idea. We were just implementers. This confession made DeSantis' situation even worse. The scandal wasn't limited to Florida. An emergency investigation commission was established in Congress. Jasmine Crockett was elected as the chair of this commission. This isn't just one person's crime, she said at the commission's first meeting. This is a symptom of a systemic problem. It shows how energy policies in America are manipulated by private companies. The commission's work lasted 6 months. The results were shocking. Similar manipulations had been carried out in 12 states. A total of $340 million in illegal money transfers had been made. 47 politicians were involved in this network. 23 energy companies were involved in organized crimes. DeSantis' case was heard in federal court. Prosecutors brought 27 separate charges. Accepting bribes, 11 counts. Abuse of public office, 8 counts. Violation of election laws, 5 counts. Environmental crimes, 3 counts. The trial lasted 3 months. Jasmine Crockett testified as a star witness. Your Honor, this isn't just a bribery case. This is an attack on American democracy. Public interests have been sold to private interests. DeSantis' lawyers made a last-ditch effort to invalidate the evidence, but failed. The jury delivered its verdict 3 days later. Guilty on all 27 charges. Judge James Morrison sentenced DeSantis to 23 years in federal prison. Mr. DeSantis, you abused the trust given to you. You sold the interests of Florida's people for $25 million. This is an attack on democratic values. DeSantis was crying when he received the sentence. Please think of my family. Thinking of your family was your responsibility. You should have thought of them when you committed these crimes. After this case, Jasmine Crockett became a national figure. She ran for Texas Senate in the 2026 midterm elections and won by a large margin. In 2028, vice presidential candidacy began to be discussed. But she was only 35 years old and had big dreams. This is just the beginning, she said in her victory speech. We've proven that clean politics is possible in America. Now we'll grow this movement. In 2030, Jasmine Crockett was a U.S. Senator and preparing for the presidency. When she started investigating that midnight meeting, she only wanted to solve the energy manipulation in Florida. But this investigation turned into one of America's biggest political scandals. This event, called the DeSantis Nights, started a transparency revolution in politics. Ron DeSantis was serving his sentence in federal prison. His chance for early release was in 2045. Atlas Energy had gone bankrupt. CEO Blackstone had received a 15-year prison sentence. Solar energy projects were booming in Florida. After the barriers were removed, the state became one of America's clean energy leaders. The recordings of that midnight meeting were now being used as course material at Georgetown University's political science faculty. The course, How a Journalistic Investigation Protects Democracy. When Jasmine Crockett thought about those days, she remembered Michael's words. "You're right and you have evidence. Sometimes all that's needed to do the right thing is courage and persistence." And that's how a secret meeting that took place at midnight was brought to light, thanks to a congresswoman's determination. Ron DeSantis thought he was powerful, but real power comes from the people. That night, Jasmine Crockett wasn't just conducting an investigation. She was protecting democracy. This story shows us this. Even a single person standing against power can make a difference. What matters is courage, preparation, and never giving up. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. This way you won't miss other striking stories from American politics. When Ron DeSantis went to that midnight meeting, he didn't know he was making the biggest mistake of his life. When Jasmine Crockett started that investigation, she didn't know she would change America's fate. Sometimes the biggest changes arise from the smallest beginnings. What matters is pursuing what's right and never giving up.